Hi, everybody. It's Kristina Dennis, the Transformational Self-Empowerment Master. And I'm coming to you today with some nerves because I want to talk. I didn't want to talk about this. Yesterday I declared that we were going to discuss relationships. And as I started putting together, some of my thoughts in regards to my early years, I realized, as usual, hi Rebecca, I love you too. As usual, God's infinite wisdom, our Creator's infinite wisdom, that I was going to be pushed into a corner, or not corner, that sounds like I'm not choosing it, that I was being led to some more discovery, which will only enhance the current relationship I'm in, as well as my relationship with everybody else on this planet. So it's worth the work. It's the transformation I'm talking about, and it never stops, and I love that. But what I want to talk about today is abuse, sexual abuse, and yucky parts that people don't like to talk about. Even in my platform and my public speaking, it's often shied away from. It has been suggested to me not to bring up that. I am sad that that is the case, but sometimes we start with little bits of information when we're talking to people, and perhaps that is more of a one-on-one conversation. But I had recently been having dreams about my first husband, and I feel even weird saying that because it has started to become really apparent to me that although I learned a lot in regards to my business, I learned a lot in regards to human nature, that it was a really abusive relationship. And people who are watching probably know that, who knew me back then. But I don't talk a lot about it because, it was during a time where, alcoholism kept me imprisoned, and as well as my own lack of belief that I deserved better, or even realizing that it was abusive. And I heard a statistic today about, 33%, 1 in 3 women are in a current relationship where they will suffer verbal abuse or mental abuse, and 10% of men from their spouse or their partner. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is still a conversation that needs to be had. And when I started thinking about, a lot of times what I'll do, I'm not going to be totally, concise, because this is very, very sensitive information. And I hope I'm proving my point about not being perfect and not having all the answers. But the becoming of the person that I want to be is as much of a goal as being that person. And part of me becoming that person is sharing from a place of authenticity and perhaps pain and uncomfort. So my first husband, as I mentioned yesterday, was 24 years older than me, and he was quite well known in the city that we lived in. He owned restaurants, he had a charismatic personality, and he wore me down. I was 18. I was in a relationship with another abusive man, but more of a addicted to marijuana type guy, so not that ambitious in his abuse, just more of an avoider. And this man was, like I said, systematically isolated me, gave me a job, started taking me to amazing places, and he made it quite clear that he was interested in having a sexual relationship. And I didn't know how to not have that happen. And I literally made choices at that time to go ahead and enter into a sexual relationship with him, even though I wasn't attracted to him, even though he was married at the time, even though I knew it wasn't a good idea. I knew it was wrong. I remember thinking to myself that I could either turn him in for sexual harassment or I could go on a date. Those were the two choices I thought I had at 18. And I'll talk a little more about, what brought me there. My story is really bizarre in some ways. Everybody who knows me knows, the abuse I suffered. And And what set me up for the sexual abuse and the disrespect and the mental abuse for this marriage was, of course, the parents who raised me. And they're very, very, I can explain a lot of the things that led them to be that way, but I don't excuse it. And I think it's super important for people to understand. Yes, you can figure out like it wasn't about you, but you still have to feel the feelings and still get to feel vulnerable. And boy, is that, not a party. So my grandfather was inappropriate. I guess that's the way to say it. And, that was kind of gross. I don't really remember anything, more than that. And I don't really chase after it. And I feel for people that get those flashbacks. But my grandmother was covertly sexually abusive in the way that she would speak to me. And it wasn't until my first counselor in sobriety at 28, 29 years old started pointing out to me that you don't talk to 9-year-olds like that. You don't force conversations on them. And she would stare at me in the face. And one, she would make the fact that I was a beautiful girl a problem and wrong. And two, she would also say, I know what you're doing. I know what you've been doing. And she'd just get right in my face. And so I had this very unhealthy understanding of sex and my sexual power. And so when I met my first husband at 18, I had no way of understanding, but I knew it wasn't right what he was doing. And I almost made the switch, like, I'm going to go ahead and sleep with him. I'm going to go ahead and have a sexual relationship with him because I can't get him to stop. And, you think about it, I was living on my own. I didn't have money to feed myself. I was making minimum wage at $3.25 an hour. Isn't that crazy? That's how long I've been alive. And isn't it sad that 35 years later, it's really not that much higher than minimum wage. But I wasn't making very much money, and he gave me a job in his restaurant, in which my entire job was to stand there and say hello to people and be beautiful. That was how he described it. And of course, that didn't end up being that way because I had a lot more to me than that. But I entered into this incredibly unhealthy, abusive relationship. And I'm just now starting to explore a little bit of that. I'm in a safe place. I'm in a good relationship. And I'm starting to realize, okay, that wasn't all right. And I feel like the realization of knowing that is important for several reasons. One, it helps me become more whole. Those paper dolls become more and more one person. And two, it gives me the strength to share with others so that if you are in that position right now and you are uncomfortable, that we educate emotionally, that we provide education to our young girls. We provide education to our young men about appropriate relationships and what that does. And really, that's the only choice we have. We have to work together. So I wanted to talk about what it feels like to own the fact that although there were things that came out of that first marriage, we were together 8 years, and it took me being an active alcoholic to have the courage to leave. I left the state that we lived in because he would stay outside of my house that I was renting with friends and call over and over and over again until one of them would finally answer the phone and say, please, Christy, we just get on the phone. And when I would get on the phone with him, he would say things like, I understand why OJ did what he did. Frightening things. And I had been so conditioned to accept that kind of abuse. I've been so conditioned to believe that that was the way that the world was and the way that the world would always be, that I didn't even question it. I mean, I thought he was a pain in the ass. I thought he was a little better than my grandma, and therefore it was okay. And it took me being an alcoholic to leave that relationship. It took me having liquid courage to move on. And so I'm grateful for the fact that I have the alcoholic gene and could numb myself and avoid those really difficult emotional minefields until I could get some help, which I found in the 12-step groups and the recovery programs to get started on this journey. So I'm not sure whether there's something to get out of that, except the fact that I don't want, if you are watching this and you have relationships in your past that you would like to rewrite, or you've put yourself in a position, because I felt very responsible. One, he was married and he left his wife to marry me. And so I felt like I had to stay. And it was just such a heartbreak. And when I work with women, when I see 18-year-olds, first of all, I think, holy moly, what was he doing? And when I work with women who can't always, they take the responsibility of getting into this abusive relationship, or they can't see where their history or their childhood has inconsistencies that led them to have a story about the way life was at a very early age, and they pick partners that reflect that to them, partners that are hurting, partners that have their own issues, can't believe or don't want to embrace the fact that they were abused. It's not fun. But the strength and the transformation and the desire to use this for a purpose, for good, is stronger. And that's why I'm sharing this today. And so I know, because people tell me I don't hope, although I believe hope is not a bad word. A lot of people have said to me, you don't hope, Okay, but hope is my superpower. Sensitive is my superpower. Being hopeful. I've heard it say, and I believe it's totally true, I'm the person in the room with manure going, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. There's so much bullshit. There's so much shit. There's got to be a pony. And I like that about myself. And the more I am surrounded by safe people, the easier it is to be that person and to giggle and love myself. And so just wanted to share a little bit about my own personal history and to be really honest about relationships and where I've been, so that when I'm talking in this room, when I am sharing with you insights that I've learned and wisdom that's been given to me, that you understand that I know what it's like to make the wrong choice. So, love you all, and I hope to talk to each and every one of you soon. And thank you for all the love you give me on Facebook and YouTube. And have a great weekend. I'm going to come in here on Monday, and we'll see where relationships, which is what I declared yesterday as being my discussion, lead us. All right, take care.